family betrayal cuts deeper than any knife. I never thought my own daughter would look me in the eyes and try to take everything I worked for. But there she was, standing in my kitchen, demanding control of my life savings like it was her birthright. "From today, I want your pension sent to my account," Carla said, leaning against my counter like she owned the place. No please, no explanation, just entitlement in her voice as steam rose from the pot of gumbo I've been stirring. I gripped the wooden spoon tighter, my knuckles turning white. "Excuse me?" "You heard me," she repeated, crossing her arms. "It just makes sense. You're getting older, Ma. I'll handle the bills, make sure everything's taken care of." Her smile didn't reach her eyes. 71 years on this earth. 38 years as a nurse, and 29 years raising this child alone. And this was my reward? To be treated like I'd suddenly lost the ability to manage my own money? "Carla," I said, my voice shakier than I wanted, "that pension is all I have. I worked my whole life for it." She rolled her eyes. "And you'll still get what you need. I'll make sure of it." What she needed was my money. What I needed was respect. As we stared at each other across my small kitchen, I realized something that broke my heart. The little girl I'd sacrificed everything for now saw me as nothing but a checkbook. But here's what my daughter didn't know. I may be old, but I'm far from helpless, and I'd rather lose a child than lose my dignity. Have you ever had to choose between family loyalty and self-respect? Subscribe now to hear how I fought back against my own daughter's betrayal. Also, download your ebook titled Suspense and Thriller Stories by clicking the link in the pinned comment. I always thought that the hardest part of aging would be the loneliness. Those quiet mornings when the house feels too empty, when memories echo louder than footsteps. But I was wrong. The hardest part is realizing that the people you sacrificed everything for can look you in the face and decide your life belongs to them. My name is Evelyn Johnson. 5 years ago, I retired after nearly 4 decades of working as a nurse at Birmingham Community Hospital. Every day, I'd changed bandages, administered medications, and held the hands of the dying. I'd seen people at their most vulnerable. Never thought I'd become one of them. I raised my 2 children alone after their father walked out when my youngest was just 2 years old. We lived in a small house with peeling paint and creaky floors, but it was ours. I stretched every dollar until it screamed, worked double shifts, went without new clothes so my children could have school supplies. The kids never had everything they wanted, but they always had what they needed. My son Anthony turned out well. He's an electrician in Atlanta now, married with 2 little ones, calls me every Sunday without fail. "How you feeling, Ma? You need anything?" He always asks. Most times I tell him I'm fine, even when I'm not. Pride, I suppose. Then there's Carla. My daughter was always different. As a child, she'd charm strangers in the grocery store into buying her candy. As a teenager, she'd tell elaborate stories to cover why she missed curfew. I always knew when she was lying. Her left eye would twitch slightly, but I'd pretend to believe her anyway. "She's dispirited," I'd tell the teachers who called about her behavior. "She'll grow out of it." But she never did. At 17, Karma got pregnant. The boy disappeared faster than morning dew in July heat. I stepped in, like I always did, watched her daughter Imani while Carla finished school, paid for her to take night classes when she said she wanted to be a dental assistant. She quit after 3 months, said the teacher didn't like her. After that came a parade of retail jobs she couldn't keep, men who weren't worth keeping, and promises that never lasted longer than a season's change. I'd sit up waiting for her calls, usually around 2 a.m., usually needing money for rent or to get her car out of impound. And through it all, I stayed the constant. I helped raise Imani. That child became the light of my life. While Carla bounced from one crisis to another, I was teaching Imani her ABCs, bandaging her skinned knees, braiding her hair for school. My retirement was supposed to be peaceful. My pension isn't huge, but with Social Security, I managed just fine. My little house is paid off. I have my garden out back, my church group on Sundays, and bingo with the ladies every Friday night. Simple pleasures that I earned through decades of hard work. Anthony sends money sometimes, though I tell him not to. "You took care of us, Ma. Now it's our turn," he always says. Carla, though, she doesn't send. She takes. She shows up unannounced, usually with a request, a small loan that's never repaid, groceries when her fridge is empty, help with Imani's school fees, a place to crash for a few days after another relationship ends badly. And I always gave in, because that's what mothers do. At least, that's what I told myself. The day after Carla demanded my pension, I was sorting through my mail when I noticed something strange. A letter from my bank about a change of account access I'd never requested. My hands trembled as I opened it. Someone had tried to add a new name to my account. Someone had forged my signature. I didn't need to guess who. The following Monday, I marched into my bank, clutching that letter in my hand like it was evidence in a murder trial. In a way, it was the murder of trust. "Miss Johnson," the banker said, a young man with kind eyes and a neat tie, "someone tried to file power of attorney paperwork on your behalf." He slid a document across the desk. There was my signature at the bottom. Close, but not quite right. The E was too loopy, the N too straight. A forgery. "The signature didn't match our records," he explained. "That's why we sent the letter." My chest tightened. "My daughter," I whispered. It was my daughter. The banker helped me change all my passwords, add security questions only I would know, and place a fraud alert on my accounts. As I left the bank, my phone rang. Carla. "Hey, Ma," she said casually, like nothing had happened. "Just checking in." "Are you?" My voice was ice. "Or are you checking if your little scheme worked?" Silence. Then, "What are you talking about?" "The power of attorney form, Carla. The one with my forged signature." She sputtered, then switched tactics faster than a chameleon changes colors. "I was just trying to help. You're getting confused lately, forgetting things. I was worried." "Worried about me or worried about my money?" "This is exactly what I'm talking about." Her voice rose. "You're paranoid, seeing things that aren't there. This is why you need someone to take over." I hung up. My hands were shaking so badly I nearly dropped my phone. For 2 weeks she didn't call, didn't visit. I told myself it was over, that she'd given up. I was wrong. One sunny afternoon, I was in my garden when Imani came over. At 15, she'd grown tall like her grandmother, with my same serious eyes. She usually spent weekends with me, away from whatever chaos was happening at Carla's place. "Grandma," she said quietly, sitting beside me on the porch steps. She glanced around nervously. "I need to tell you something, but you can't tell Mom I told you." I set down my gardening gloves. "What is it, baby?" "Mom's boyfriend moved in 3 weeks ago." "Boyfriend? What boyfriend?" "His name's Rick. He doesn't work much, just sits around playing video games and telling Mom what to do." I frowned. "And what does he tell her to do?" Imani looked down at her sneakers. "He says you're sitting on a gold mine. That's what he calls your pension, a gold mine." She took a deep breath. "Last night, I heard them talking. Mom said once she gets control of your money, they're going to move into a bigger place. Rick wants to buy a boat. The world tilted sideways. It wasn't just Carla being impulsive or thinking she knew better than me. This was calculated, planned, a conspiracy between my daughter and some man I'd never even met. They think I'm just a stupid kid who doesn't understand, Imani continued, her voice cracking, but I know what they're trying to do. It's not right, Grandma. I pulled her close. Thank you for telling me, sweetheart, but don't worry, I'm not going to let this happen. That night I called Anthony, told him everything. He was silent for a long moment. Ma, he finally said, voice tight with anger, this isn't the first time. What did you mean? Carla called me last month, asked if I'd signed some paper saying you were getting forgetful, said it would help protect you. I told her she was crazy. Cold dread washed through me. My own daughter was trying to have me declared incompetent. What should I do? I asked. Fight, he said simply. Fight like hell. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about all the times I'd made excuses for Carla, all the times I'd enabled her, all the times I'd chosen peace over confrontation. But not anymore. If she wanted a fight, she'd get one. I just didn't know how ugly things would become. If you've ever felt betrayed by someone you trusted completely, comment betrayal below. The hardest battles are the ones fought against the people we love most. It was a Wednesday afternoon when Carla finally showed up again, this time with a man I'd never seen before. Tall, with slicked back hair and a leather jacket that smelled too strongly of cologne. He wore a heavy watch that looked expensive against his otherwise cheap clothes. Ma, Carla said, walking in without knocking as usual, this is Rick. He didn't offer to shake my hand, just looked around my living room like he was appraising it for auction. Nice place you got here, he said, running his finger along my bookshelf. Cozy. The way he said cozy made it sound like an insult. I sat in my armchair, back straight, hands folded in my lap like I was in church. What do you want, Carla? She exchanged a look with Rick. We need to talk about your situation again. My situation? I repeated flatly. Yes, she sat on my couch, Rick beside her. I'm worried about you living alone. Your memory's getting spotty. Last week you called me Anthony twice. I did not. She continued like I hadn't spoken. Rick and I think it would be best if we handled your finances from now on, for your own protection. Rick nodded, all false concern. Elder financial abuse is real common these days. Scammers target folks your age all the time. The irony of him warning me about scammers while plotting to take my money wasn't lost on me. We're family, Carla pressed. We can manage things better than you alone. I laughed, not from amusement, from disbelief. So let me get this straight. You forged my signature, tried to steal control of my accounts, and now you're sitting in my house with this man I've never met before, telling me you should control my pension? The pension I earned working night shifts and holidays for nearly 40 decades? Carla's face hardened. You're being selfish. You've had your time. It's our turn now. Those words hit me like a physical blow. My time? Carla, everything I ever had, I gave to you and your brother. I went without so you wouldn't have to. I worked overtime so you could have new school clothes. And now you think I owe you my future too? Rick leaned forward, dropping the concerned act. Listen, old lady, this can go two ways. You either transfer everything willingly, or we make sure the state knows you're not fit to handle your own affairs. Are you threatening me? My voice was quiet, dangerous. Carla stood up, towering over me. We're not threatening. We're telling you how it's going to be. You either sign the papers we bring next week, or we'll have you evaluated for dementia. Your choice." After they left, I sat motionless in my chair, staring at the family photos on my wall. There was Carla at her high school graduation, smiling with the diploma I'd sacrificed to help her earn. There was Carla holding baby Imani, looking overwhelmed but hopeful. Where had that girl gone? How had she turned into this stranger who saw me as nothing but a resource to exploit? If I could see into Carla's mind at that moment, what would I find? Justification, probably. She'd tell herself I didn't need all that money, that I'd just wasted on gardening supplies and bingo nights while she struggled, that I owed her for all the times I'd worked late and missed her school events, and that this person, Rick, was her chance at happiness and my pension would help secure it. She'd convince herself she wasn't stealing, just balancing the scales. That night, Anthony called. "How are you holding up, Ma?" I told him about Carla and Rick's visit, about their threats. His voice turned hard. "Ma, listen to me. This is worse than I thought. Carla's been talking to an elder law attorney. She's building a case to have you declared incompetent." My blood ran cold. "What am I going to do, Anthony? She's my daughter." "And you're my mother," he said firmly. "I'm coming down this weekend. We're going to fix this." After we hung up, I sat on my porch swing, watching fireflies dance in the evening air. The realization settled over me like a heavy blanket. This wasn't just about money anymore. This was about my freedom, my autonomy, my right to live the life I earned. If Carla succeeded in having me declared incompetent, I'd lose everything: my home, my independence, my dignity. I'd become a prisoner in my own life, with my jailer being the child I raised with love. The unfairness of it burned in my chest, hardened into resolve. I'd spent my whole life caring for others. Now it was time to fight for myself. Anthony arrived Saturday morning, a storm in his eyes. He hugged me tight, then immediately went into battle mode. "We need a lawyer," he said, pacing my kitchen. "A good one." By noon, we were sitting in the office of Patricia Wilkins, an attorney who specialized in elder law. Her office was small but neat, with degrees covering one wall and family photos on her desk. "Unfortunately," she said after hearing our story, "what your daughter is attempting isn't uncommon. I see cases like this every month." "Can she really have me declared incompetent?" I asked. Patricia nodded gravely. "If she finds a doctor willing to say you're showing signs of cognitive decline, yes, she could petition for guardianship. At minimum, it would trigger a court evaluation." My hands twisted in my lap. "And if that happens?" "Best case, the court sees it's a money grab and dismisses it. Worst case, you lose control of your finances, medical decisions, possibly even where you live." Anthony's jaw tightened. "We're not letting that happen." For the next 2 hours, we developed a plan. Patricia helped me create a living trust with Anthony as successor trustee, but only if I became truly incapacitated. I signed a medical power of attorney and a durable power of attorney, again naming Anthony. I updated my will. Most importantly, we added what Patricia called a no contest clause. If anyone, specifically Carla, tried to challenge these documents, they'd forfeit their inheritance completely. Everything was notarized, filed, and ironclad. But we weren't done. "Carla thinks you're an easy target," Patricia explained. "We need to prove her wrong, and we need evidence of her intentions." That's when the trap was set. 2 days later, I called Carla, made my voice sound tired, defeated. I've been thinking about what she said. I told her, "Maybe you're right. Maybe I do need help." The eagerness in her response made my heart ache. "Really, Ma? That's great. I knew you'd come around. Why don't you come over tomorrow? We can talk about how to arrange things." The next day, she arrived alone. No Rick this time. I'd set up a recorder hidden in my knitting basket just as Patricia had suggested, legal in Alabama with one-party consent. "I'm glad you're being reasonable," she said, settling onto my couch. "It's for your own good." "I know, baby. I've just been scared." "Of what?" Her brow furrowed. "Of losing control. Of having nothing left." I let my voice wobble. "You know I worked so hard for that pension." "And you'll still get what you need," she said, patting my hand condescendingly. "Rick and I'll make sure of it." "What exactly are you planning to do with my money?" I asked innocently. She brightened. "Well, first we'll move to a bigger place. That apartment is too small for the three of us. Maybe get a new car since mine is always breaking down. Rick wants a boat, but I told him that might have to wait." She laughed. "And of course we'll make sure your bills are paid." "How generous," I murmured. I presented her with a document Patricia had prepared, a financial management agreement that looked official but actually didn't grant any legal powers. It simply documented Carla's intent to control my assets. "You just need to sign here," I said, pointing to the signature line. She didn't even read it, just signed with a flourish, a smile spreading across her face. "See, wasn't that easy?" she said. "Now we can all relax." I forced a smile. "Yes, it's a weight off my mind." After she left, clutching her copy of the worthless agreement, I called Anthony. "She took the bait," I said. We knew what would happen next. Carla would take that document to her lawyer, thinking she'd won. She'd push forward with her plan to have me declared incompetent. She had no idea we'd already blocked every move she could make. All we had to do was wait. The next week crawled by. Every knock at the door made my heart race. Every phone call sent adrenaline coursing through my body. The weight of betrayal sat heavy on my chest, making it hard to breathe sometimes. This was my daughter, my baby. The little girl who'd once climbed into my bed during thunderstorms, the teenager who had defiantly cut her own bangs, then cried for me to fix them. The young mother who had placed newborn Imani in my arms with such pride. How had we come to this? But beneath the sadness was something else. Something that surprised me. Strength. For so long, I'd let Carla push me around, take advantage, manipulate me with guilt. Not anymore. For perhaps the first time in our relationship, I was fully in control. She thought she'd won. She had no idea what was coming. Would you have the courage to set a trap for your own child if they were trying to steal your life savings? Comment your thoughts below. Would you fight back or try to find another way? The night before our court date, I couldn't sleep. Rain tapped against my bedroom window as I sat in the rocking chair that had once been my grandmother's. The same chair where I'd nursed both my babies, where I'd held Imani through colic and fevers. Was I doing the right thing? The question haunted me like a ghost. In less than 12 hours, I faced my daughter across a courtroom. I'd expose her schemes, humiliate her, possibly sever our relationship forever. What kind of mother does that to her child? I picked up the framed photo from my nightstand. Carla, at 6 years old, gap-toothed smile, holding a dandelion she picked for me. "It's a wish flower, Mama," she'd said. "Make a wish." I'd wish for her happiness, for her safety, for her to grow into a woman with integrity and compassion. Where had I gone wrong? Maybe I'd been too soft, too forgiving. Maybe I'd cleaned up her messes so many times that she never learned actions have consequences. Or maybe she'd always been this way and I'd been too blind to see it. The phone rang, startling me. Who would call at midnight? "Hello?" I answered cautiously. "Grandma?" Imani's voice was a whisper. "Are you awake?" "I am now, baby. What's wrong?" "Mom's been drinking. Her and Rick are fighting about tomorrow, about the court thing." My stomach tightened. How do you know about that? "I heard them. Rick's mad because Mom told him it was a sure thing, that she'd get control of your money easy." She paused. Grandma, he hit her. My breath caught. Is she okay? Are you okay? We're fine. He left, slammed the door, and drove off. Another pause. Mom's crying. She keeps saying she messed everything up. The image of my daughter, alone, crying, possibly hurt, pulled at me. The maternal instinct to protect, to comfort, to fix everything rose up like a tidal wave. Do you want me to come over? I asked. No, Imani said firmly. That's not why I called. I called because, she gasped for breath, because you need to know she's not stopping. She told Rick they find another way to get your money if tomorrow doesn't work. The wave receded, leaving cold clarity in its wake. Thank you for telling me, Imani. Lock your door tonight, okay? After we hung up, I sat motionless, watching rain streak down the window. The choice crystallized before me like frost on glass. I could forgive Carla, again, make excuses, again, let her back into my life, again. Or I could protect myself, set a boundary with consequences, show her and myself that love doesn't mean allowing yourself to be exploited. It wasn't really a choice between loving my daughter and protecting myself. It was about what kind of love I was willing to give. Enabling love that hurt us both, or tough love that might help her grow. Dawn broke with no answers, just resolve. Whatever happened in that courtroom, I would face it with dignity, with strength, with the knowledge I'd done everything I could as a mother, including the hardest thing of all, letting my child face the consequences of her actions. As I dressed for court in my Sunday best, navy dress, sensible pumps, pearl earrings my late mother had given me, I thought about all the mothers throughout history who'd had to make impossible choices for the greater good. I was in good company. Have you ever had to choose between helping someone you love and protecting yourself? The hardest choices are rarely between good and bad. They're between bad and worse. The county courthouse was smaller than I expected. Cold fluorescent lights, hard wooden benches, the smell of floor polish and anxiety. Anthony sat beside me, solid as an oak. Patricia arranged papers at our table, calm and methodical. Across the aisle, Carla whispered with a thin man in an ill-fitting suit, her lawyer, I presumed. No sign of Rick. When Carla caught my eye, she looked away quickly. A purple shadow bloomed on her cheekbone, the mark Rick had left. My heart twisted. Even now, I wanted to go to her, to touch that bruise gently and tell her she deserved better, that she always had. But then the bailiff called, "All rise," and the moment passed. Judge Harriet Monroe was a black woman in her 60s with silver-streaked hair and reading glasses perched on her nose. She reviewed the petition before her, Carla's request to be named my guardian, due to cognitive decline and financial vulnerability. "Miss Johnson," the judge addressed Carla, "you're claiming your mother is incapable of managing her affairs. What evidence do you have?" Carla's lawyer stood. "Your Honor, my client has observed concerning memory lapses. Her mother often forgets conversations, misplaces items, and recently agreed to transfer financial control, showing awareness of her limitations." He presented the document I'd tricked Carla into signing, the fake financial management agreement. "As you can see," he continued smugly, Mrs. Johnson willingly signed control of her finances to her daughter just last week. The judge examined the paper. Mrs. Johnson, she addressed me, did you sign this document? I stood, steadier than I felt. Yes, Your Honor, I did. Carla's lawyer smiled triumphantly. However, I continued, I signed it as evidence of my daughter's intentions, not as a legal transfer of authority. The judge raised an eyebrow. Explain. Patricia rose. Your Honor, my client has documentation proving Miss Johnson has been attempting to gain control of her mother's assets through deception. We have recorded evidence of her stating plans to use her mother's pension for personal expenses, including a new home and a boat. She played the recording. Carla's voice filled the courtroom. Well, first we'll move to a bigger place. Rick wants a boat. And, of course, we'll make sure your bills are paid. Carla's face drained of color. Patricia wasn't done. Additionally, we have evidence of a forged power of attorney attempt from last month. She presented the bank's documentation and statements from multiple parties whom Ms. Johnson approached, asking them to falsely claim her mother was showing signs of dementia. The judge's expression hardened. She turned to Carla. Miss Johnson, these are serious allegations. Do you deny them? Carla stood, trembling. Your Honor, I was just trying to protect my mother. She's getting older. I'm 71, not 101. I interrupted, surprising myself with my boldness. The courtroom tittered. The judge suppressed a smile. Furthermore, Patricia continued, Mrs. Johnson has already executed a comprehensive estate plan. She presented our documents, a living trust, powers of attorney, and healthcare directives, all properly executed and notarized 2 weeks ago. The judge reviewed them carefully. These appear to be in order. There's one more thing, Your Honor, Patricia said. The trust includes a no contest clause. Any attempt to challenge these documents results in disinheritance. The final twist of the knife. By filing this petition, Carla had triggered the clause. She just lost her inheritance without realizing it. The judge looked at Carla over her reading glasses. Ms. Johnson, I'm dismissing your petition. There is no evidence your mother is incompetent. On the contrary, she appears to have outmaneuvered you completely. Carla collapsed into her chair, face in her hands. Additionally, the judge continued, I'm issuing a protective order preventing you from filing similar petitions without substantial new evidence, and I strongly suggest you reflect on your actions today. As we left the courtroom, Carla rushed past us, tears streaming down her face. For a moment, our eyes met. In hers, I saw shock, betrayal, and something else, a flicker of respect. I'd won, but victory felt hollow. If you've ever had to stand up to a family member who was trying to take advantage of you, comment strength below. Sometimes the strongest thing we can do is set boundaries with those we love most. 3 months have passed since that day in court. Autumn has painted my garden in golds and reds. Life has settled into a new normal. Different, but not without its blessings. Carla and Rick broke up a week after the hearing. She moved to Nashville, taking Imani with her. We don't speak much. A text message on my birthday, a brief call at Christmas. The wound between us is still raw, still healing. But Imani visits every other weekend. Anthony drives her down from Nashville, where Carla reluctantly agreed to let her stay with him and Janelle during these visits. Those weekends are precious. Baking cookies, watching old movies, teaching her to garden, building the relationship that Carla and I may never recover. "Do you hate Mom?" Imani asked me once as we planted tulip bulbs for spring. "No, baby," I answered truthfully. "I love your mother. I always will. But sometimes loving someone means not letting them hurt you." She nodded, wise beyond her years. "Like how you don't let someone keep hitting you just because they're family." Exactly like that. Anthony checks on me more often now. Not because he thinks I can't manage, he knows better, but because he wants to. We've grown closer through this ordeal, finding strength in each other. As for me, I've joined a support group for seniors facing family estrangement. It's more common than you might think. We meet on Thursdays at the community center, sharing stories over coffee and understanding nods. Through their experiences, I've learned I'm not alone, not a failure as a mother, just a woman who finally stood up for herself. Some days are harder than others. I still catch myself reaching for the phone to call Carla when I see something that would make her laugh. I still set aside recipes I think she'd enjoy. Old habits of motherhood don't fade easily. But I've found peace in my boundaries, in knowing that love doesn't mean being a doormat, that sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself and others is to say no more. I used to think aging was about loss, losing youth, health, relevance. Now I see it differently. Aging has given me wisdom I lacked in youth, the courage to protect what I've earned, the clarity to distinguish between love and exploitation. My pension remains mine, funding my quiet life, my garden, my bingo nights. Sometimes I send Imani a little something extra for school clothes or books, not because I have to, but because I choose to. That's the difference. Remember how this story began? With my daughter demanding control of my pension? What she didn't know was that her mother, the woman who had always given in, always made excuses, always put others first, had finally learned to put herself first too. If there's one thing I want you to take from my story, it's this. Love your family fiercely, but never let that love blind you to manipulation. Trust is earned, not owed, even to blood. And protecting your dignity isn't selfish, it's necessary. Aging brings many challenges, but it also brings the freedom to finally live on your own terms. Don't let anyone, not even those you love most, take that away from you. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe to hear more true stories of family betrayal, unexpected courage, and hard-won wisdom. Next week, I'll share what happened when a mother discovered her son had been hiding a 30-year secret that would change everything she thought she knew about her family. Lastly, download your ebook titled Suspense and Thriller Stories by clicking the link in the pinned comment.